Hello and welcome to the history of Stargate. Today's episode, Ishta. And here we go. Ishta was a High Jaffa priestess who once served the Goa'uld system lord Moloch until she formed and led the Hak'tel Resistance, a group of Jaffa females who saved an adolescent female Jaffa from being slaughtered by Moloch before forming an alliance with the teal'c. She heard of teal'c's backstory and how he became a Shova and defected from Apophis. After the first meeting with the teal'c, she developed an intimate relationship with teal'c. Ishta was also among those who switched from using symbiotes to Tritonin. Ishta was once a Jaffa high priestess who served under the system lord Moloch. She had a husband who was a warrior in Moloch's Imperial Guard, but was killed in action fighting the forces of a rival Goa'uld. About 3 decades before first contact with the teal'c, Moloch decreed that only male children born in his domain would be allowed to live, in the hopes of strengthening his armies and leading them to victory in war with the other system lords. As the Jaffa lifespan was longer than humans, even young females was to be sacrificed to the ceremony of fire, a ritual in which all young Jaffa's females were burned alive. As a high priestess, Ishta kept a record of all births and presided over the ceremony itself. She decided that she would not sit back and watch her sisters be murdered and do nothing. So she, along with her seconds, Mala and Nith, formed a resistance movement called the Hak'tel Resistance. Since they were allowed relatively free access to the planet Stargate under Moloch's rule, they could rescue as many young girls as possible and seek refuge on another planet, which the resistance would call Hak'tel. She and her followers would seek out symbiotes from fallen warriors, which would be used to save the children before reaching Preta, 2003. She sent some of her followers to the planet where SG1 of the teal'c and teal'c were to form an alliance with some of the Jaffas among Moloch's ranks who wished to be free, including Raquel. However, there was an ambush and Raquel was killed. The Hayak members were able to save them and Raquel's symbiote and escort SG1 to Ishta, where she intended on starting an alliance with them. She explained the history of their group to Major Samantha Carter. Since she was a female member of SG1, she wanted an alliance so that her group can be given more symbiotes, as well as food and supplies, which had become scarce. Carter offered Ishta an alternative to symbiotes, Tritonin. At first, she objected, but after spending time with teal'c, she agreed to send some of her sisters to become test subjects. Since that period, only 2 Jaffa were given Tritonin. She spent more time with teal'c, where she learned of teal'c's wife, who had died when her symbiote matured. She told him that since she too had lost someone, there was no sin in taking comfort in another lonely soul, and the two spent the night together. The next morning, Neth felt that Ishtar was no longer fit to lead after her time with teal'c, and challenged her to Joma Seku. After accepting the challenge, the two chose not to, as Neth's sister, Nessa, was in need of a symbiote, and she heard from Dr. Daniel Jackson that Mala had died due to complications in the Tritonin. Despite teal'c urging her not to, she led a raid to acquire a symbiote. She and some of her sisters arrived at the battlefield and saw several slain Jaffa warriors. When she was about to take the symbiote of a dying Jaffa, she heard him say the words, Shel Kek Nim Ron, wishing to be free. Ishta grew disturbed at the thought on the number of Jaffa she took the symbiotes from, who wanted to be free from Goa'uld rule. Neth was wounded by an enemy Jaffa, but teal'c convinced Ishta not to take the dying Jaffa's symbiote, reminding her of the Tritonin. Neth was sent to Stargate Command on Earth, and was offered Tritonin. After listening to Nessa, who also chose to take Tritonin, she accepted it. After the Tritonin tests were mostly a success, Ishta and the rest of her resistance also took it. Before she left, she kissed teal'c farewell and hoped that teal'c would not take long to return to her. 2004. Her resistance would later become part of the Jaffa Rebellion, while Major Samantha Carter and teal'c journeyed to Othala by a hyperdrive-modified teal'c to get the Asgard to rescue Colonel Jack O'Neill from stasis after all the ancient knowledge was downloaded into his brain from the repository of knowledge. Teal'c mentioned that he kept in touch with Ishta, despite later having a relationship with Krista James before the teal'c's next encounter with her. After Moloch learned of the existence of the location of Hak'tel, Ishta wanted her people to move to another settlement and planned to stay in Stargate Command before Moloch sent his armies, until the teal'c would find a suitable planet for them. Meanwhile, she believed her resistance had grown enough and felt ready to take down Moloch despite teal'c's thoughts that she was rushing it. However, she ignored him and started a summit anyways to defeat Moloch. However, the summit resulted in the deaths of all but 3 Jaffa, teal'c, Ishta, and Aaron. After being under attack from Moloch's forces on the planet, they were able to escape, but she noticed her tritonin was lost. During the night, feeling weak from the lack of tritonin, she left while teal'c was sleeping, but was captured by Moloch, where she was tortured in order to repent of her sins. While teal'c was searching for her, Moloch noticed her tritonin, and while he left his first prime to continue torturing her, she took the tritonin. Teal'c was able to find Moloch's first prime, was holding her hostage. Aaron was able to kill Moloch by pointing a laser at him, so a missile could reach him and his Jaffa. However, Moloch's first prime was unconvinced that his master was killed, and told teal'c that if he shot him with a Zat-Nikatel even once, due to Ishtar's weakened state, she would die, not knowing that she took the tritonin. Teal'c stunned him anyways, and confronted her, with Ishta telling him that she had already taken the tritonin, and asking if Moloch was really dead, hardly able to believe it. Though teal'c suggested they go see for themselves, Ishtar was too weak to go right away, and had teal'c hold her until she could regain enough strength to look. They were able to return to Earth and found a new settlement. Though she and her followers celebrated the death of Moloch, Baal took advantage of this situation and took over from Moloch, which was anticipated. Hey, thank you for watching the history of Stargate. Special thanks to the Stargate Wiki SG command and all contributors for all information you heard today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you can. It really helps. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.